What's up, world? It's your boy Drew Marcy here for How to Rap, and in this video series we're covering all you need to know about the music business by Donald S. Passman. Now today we're covering what you need to do to build a fan base and who are the people that you need to hire for your team in the industry first and in what order. So without further ado, let's get into it. It's super organized, a lot of great info on this episode. Let's go. The first thing he says you got to do is record your music. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to capture your energy, enthusiasm, and drive. He says additionally, make sure that it's authentic and it resonates with your target fan. Now I understand that there's many examples, especially in the hip hop game and modern music, people that sound like everybody else, but I think what he's getting at is just the idea that the longest career, the best chances for you to have that 30, 40, 50-year career is that authentic, original voice. Millions of examples of rappers who get a hit or two, make a little bit of coin, sounding like everybody else, but the Paul McCartneys, the Michael Jacksons, the James Browns, folks like that, the Eminems, the Jay-Z's, they have a unique voice, a unique perspective, and that's what you really want. So make sure that it's authentic as well. Next thing is to decide whether you want to sign to a record company or do it yourself. Now, this will be discussed in later chapters as well, but that's the next step in the process. One disclaimer, I believe, How to Rap Drew, I believe that you shouldn't just necessarily think because some of your favorite rappers, the Chance the Rappers of the world, or it's kind of sexy right now to go indie, that you should completely ignore the record company option. There's a lot of things that record companies can do really well, and you can waste a lot of time in your 20s, a lot of valuable time in your prime, just being like, well, I don't need a record label, when they can get a lot of things done, whether it's marketing, touring, etc. They can secure a lot of opportunities for you while you're focused on making the music. Like I said, the video series and the book are going to cover this more, how you go about deciding whether you want to be in a record label or not. But I would just say, don't assume that just because you think it's cool or it's trendy right now to say, I don't need no record label, that they don't have some advantages for you. Now, after that, he says you need to do two things. You need to get a story and get a fan base. Now, he doesn't say much about what a story means outside of saying it means something that comes after the line, you won't believe what's happening with this artist. So I think that he doesn't really want his forte or claim to be some marketing origin story type guru here, so he doesn't cover it very much. But I would suggest plug. Follow channels like my own. Follow some good marketing social media channels like Gary V to find your true story, your true origin story. But just going straight off the source material doesn't cover it very much. So we'll move on to the fan base portion. Now, he starts the fan base portion talking about the idea of a fan database, basically a treasure trove, a way to track a CRM, a consumer response mechanism to track your fans, be in contact with them, etc. Obviously, in 2019, we kind of think of this as social media, but it's a little bit more. I want to give a quick disclaimer that we're going to kind of run through this fan database, fan building, do it by yourself section, because it's only about 2 paragraphs in the book. There's a lot of websites listed. He doesn't seem to cover it very much. Again, don't think it's his forte. I want to give you the information, but just forgive me if this section just runs kind of quick with the main headlines about what he thinks you could be doing. I think there are much better avenues than just studying this book for particularly how to get a fan base in 2019 using social media, etc. It seems like Donald S. Passman feels the same way, because like I said, there's only like 2 paragraphs on this. He mentions first getting an email list. Now, this is extremely important to me, the big homie Drew. I personally use MailChimp. There are other systems like Aweber for this. He talks about giving away free songs on things like Twitter, on your email list. He talks about staying in touch with fans on a daily basis. Of course, we probably use social media for this. He talks about telling your fans what you want them to do. Come to a show, promote this song, etc. Quick note, he says tell your fans. He doesn't say tell everybody. He doesn't say spam inboxes. Doesn't say every single day you're gonna roll up in somebody's comment and be like, I got a new song on SoundCloud. He's talking about your fans, the people in your database. I see a lot of artists that think when it says tell everybody to come to your show, that just means throw it up on your personal Facebook all the time and annoy people. It's not what he's saying. He says write to bloggers personally. Get a personal relationship with bloggers. They appreciate that. They do want to be the person on the cutting edge who first had the first article about the person that blew up. Use Google Analytics and Facebook Insights to book gigs locally. Research that venue that's pretty open to new artists, that wants to have people coming in who are fresh off the block, etc., using Google Analytics and Facebook. He says, try to get your music on TV and commercials for performance royalties. Now, this is something the book's going to cover later on in this video series, but he mentions it as another angle to build your fan base and get out there. Like I said, this is going to conclude the quick do-it-yourself section of the book. There's a bunch of websites. Check the video description box below for what the book lists as far as websites, but he doesn't cover it very much. I think his core competency is in the rest of the book with the actual numbers and the team and all that. After completing the bare bones do-it-yourself section, he says, now, let's assume that you want to sign a record deal. The book will discuss later on again whether you want to or not and the reasons why, but for now, let's just assume you do. He says, in this day and age, companies expect you to have a decent fan base and hopefully some goodies like tastemakers mess with you, etc. In the rap game, there are tastemakers like Adam 22 of No Jumper, DJ Academics, those kind of people. Other genres, I'm sure, have very similar kind of characters. So building a fan base is going to be important. What we've talked about, all the advice that my channel and other great promotion social media channels give are super crucial no matter what. But he says, now, ladies and gentlemen, a bummer. Record companies generally don't accept music unless it's submitted by somebody in the business. The industry term for this is solicited versus unsolicited. So if you've ever heard an email or seen somebody in the industry say something like, I don't accept solicited material, that's what they're talking about. I don't accept material from the artists themselves. I need an intermediary, somebody that I know I can trust who's in the business. He says it's better for you to hear this now than waiting a few months for a declining form letter. The reason why is record labels get 300, 400, 500 submissions per week, and just to stop the floodgates, they have to have this sort of gatekeeper mechanism for themselves. So he says, I see your dilemma. How can you get your music heard if you're not already connected in the business? And how do you get connected in the business if you can't get your music heard? Don't despair. I'm going to give you the key to the door. The key consists of finding yourself a lawyer or manager to shop your music, which leads nicely into our next topic. Next topic is called Who's On First. And that's basically, again, elaborating on what order do you want to hire these people in your inner circle. Now, he says the first person is almost always a manager or a lawyer. In your baby stages, your personal manager will probably not be an industry personality. It'll probably be a friend or a relative with a lot of enthusiasm. He mentions that we will cover managers more in the future in the book and the video series. But assuming that you have a personal friend or a relative doing it who's a little inexperienced, he says, if you have an inexperienced manager or do not have a manager at all, an industry lawyer can really help. In fact, record labels prefer to work with someone they really know. So something like an industry lawyer that the record labels know is going to be really advantageous. Now he gives us some words about music lawyers. And remember, he is a music lawyer. He says it's much easier to get an industry lawyer than it is to get an industry manager. This is because what's required of an industry manager is much more intensive, a lot more time and focus than an industry lawyer. Your manager is going to play part-time A&R telling you what song is the best song, part-time stylist telling you what to wear and working on your image, a part-time booking agent. He pretty much does everything. An industry lawyer is just there to get your music heard with the record labels and the influential people that need to hear these tracks. A lawyer's competency comes down to their relationships within the industry and being known as somebody who can funnel in the great new artists to the labels, to the agencies, etc. Now, a word of caution, lawyers have to maintain these relationships and maintain their credibility with record labels, agencies, etc. That means that they'll only work with people they really believe in. If you find a lawyer that'll take anyone on or take you on just because they want to collect a check, the record labels and the people of influence probably aren't going to respect them, and it'll probably still get your tape in the trash even though you got a lawyer. So what you want to do is interview the lawyers themselves. You want to vet them. You want to put them on their back foot. You got to ask them questions like, who have you worked for? Where have you gotten placements before? What artists have you taken from the ground up? So you got to check them as well as they might check you, just to make sure that y'all are both really the real deal. Now, a last note on managers and lawyers is that the criteria for managers and lawyers is the same for an independent do-it-yourself artist, which will be discussed in the future. But these criteria and how you want to check people is going to be the case whether you do it for yourself or a record company. And last, a business manager. He says on page 17, A business manager, or the person that handles your money, investments, etc., is usually the last on board for the opposite reason of why the lawyer is first. It's expensive in terms of staffing and labor for a business manager to take you on, and new artists need a lot of work just to keep financially afloat. So until you have some decent money coming in, you don't need a full-fledged business manager. A good accountant can take care of your tax returns and answer basic questions. All right, and so there you have it. We have broken down why you need to get a fan base, some cool ideas of how you're going to do it, and of course, who you want to hire and the respective roles. Now, as always, be sure to subscribe if this is your first time watching us, because we're going to be doing this series all through the entire book. And of course, we always leave you with a question, so I want to see you in the comments after you subscribe. I want to ask, how far has your fan database grown up until this point? How large is your current fan database? And what was the best thing you've done this year in order to grow that? So how big is your fan database? And what's the best thing you've done to grow that fan base? So I'll see you on the next video. See you in the comments. Thanks for watching. It's the Big Homie Drew.